And we're back. Do you like Cyberpunk? Do you like comic books? Well, they've gone and went and put it together in Cyberpunk 2027 Omnibus Volume 1. I've really not seen more than like 1 or 2 reviews on YouTube. I always feel like 3 is like the ideal number to get like a certain number of opinions. So hopefully mine will be like that third holy trinity of opinions for you to decide whether or not you actually want to go and read this book or pay for it, perhaps. All it is a collected number of stories from 3 of the different comic book series that CD Projekt Red, which is the company behind Cyberpunk 2027, have published to Dark Horse Comics here. So the 3 series that they've decided to put into this omnibus volume, it's not all the ones that they've released, because they've been releasing them over the last few years since Cyberpunk 2077 released, to somewhat mixed reviews. But the 3 stories they've added in here are Trauma Team, You Have My Word, and Blackout. They're all written by different writers. They have different artists, so that they're all kind of come across a little bit different. But I'd honestly say that regardless of them being from different writers, different creative teams, that pretty much all of them were pretty good and really worthwhile, at least 4 out of 5 stars. I'd say the first 2, Trauma Team and You Have My Word, were my preference. Out of them, I feel like the very last issue, because there's like 4 issues from each series, so there's 12 issues in total with 3 stories. The last issue of Blackout, which was the 3rd of the 3 stories, wasn't quite as good. But that was just my opinion. The other 11 were all really good. And I'd say the first 2 stories, Trauma Team and You Have My Word, were like 5 out of 5. And that the 4 out of 5 stars would just be for Blackout, which was the last one, just because of that very last issue. It's a really recent release, this one. It came out at the end of 2024, even though, like I said, the stories have been coming out for a while. They've not released or published a release date for Omnibus Volume 2, but I imagine they probably will, because there's a good like handful of other stories which I'll list here for you that you can get in individual trade paperbacks. This was just a little bit more cost efficient. This was like £20 in total, whereas all the other trade paperbacks for the 3 stories were like £10 each. So if I was going to get them and try them, I thought this was at least like a slightly more cost effective way, even if I was taking a bit of a bet on whether or not any of them were actually any good. But you get a bit of a mix here of stories. The first of the 3 stories, Trauma Team, is based on a sort of medical rescue team which was in one of the earliest missions that you complete in the Cyberpunk 2077 game. It's basically a medical team that comes in not just with medics but also with armed soldiers to basically rescue someone if they have like a really good life insurance policy, and if they get in some sort of a trouble that they come in and get rescued. Basically, one of the members of a Trauma team seems to be the only one that survives. It's this woman who seems to really not be fit for action. But you basically go through her story where she loses her first team. Her second team also doesn't do so well. But regardless, most of the story revolves around after her first team all dying and she being the only surviving member. It takes you through the next mission where the person that she has to protect was the person who killed her previous teammates. Or colleagues, if you want to call them that. And one of those colleagues, spoiler alert, happened to be her lover. So she does not want to save this guy, but she has to, and the other members of her team are basically, their lives are on the line, as well as it being, their job that they're paid for, regardless of them working for some sort of soulless corporation, which seems to be the thing in Night City, which is the city that Cyberpunk 2077 is set in. Story number 2 is titled You Have My Word. This is kind of like a John Wick-esque story. I won't tell you what characters it is because they kind of get revealed probably about issue 2, I believe it is. But it's a bit of a revenge story. Someone dies, someone has to come back to Night City, and there's a little bit of family ties in there, and there's a lot of action. The one good thing about all these series is that it's a little bit like Game of Thrones, where they're not afraid to kill certain members, certain like perhaps main characters off, or like supporting main characters off, if you'll call them that, which I really like, because it means you never know who's going to live or die. It's definitely not for kids, FYI, because people do die. So I won't spoil who it is that dies. I'll let you enjoy that for yourself. But I think if you like comics and you like John Wick, then You Have My Word is an ideal story for you. To be honest, there's a fair amount of violence, which is, if you like it, then great. The final story is Blackout. So the Blackouts basically occur, it's like You know, it's like any sort of Blackout. There's a power outage, and the main character, at least at the start, is an employee who basically fixes the virtual reality headsets that people have to simulate brain dances, which are basically just virtual reality simulations, when the power goes out, and they basically become addicted to these brain dances because it takes them out of their crappy lives, so to say. He basically wants to be a good person and wants to get people free of these addictions and free of their fear or their alcoholism or whatever it is. Unfortunately, he's working for a corporation, so that's not what he's really doing, but he kind of wants to leave his job and get back at them in some way, shape, or form. And so he ends up planning a bit of a bank robbery with some other people that he meets along the way. Some of them are friends, some of them are other people that he sold the brain dances to. And so there's a lot of back and forth on whether or not they can actually be trusted. They're all kind of criminals or somewhat crooked. So there's a little bit of a heist/crime element to it. If you feel that's your thing, then this would probably be ideal for you as well. If any of those stories individually are the only ones that interest you, then you can, of course, go and get the trade paperbacks individually, which will be a little bit cheaper if you just want that one story. But I would say they were all really good, even the last one. If the last issue wasn't so good for me, I'd still give it like 4 out of 5 stars. So if you guys have any further questions about it, just fire them to me. I'll see all the comments, I'm sure. And yeah, have a good one. Yeah.